You're listening to the Y4Life podcast with Michelle Bound, Director of Y4Life at Lutherans for Life, where we prepare youth to be gospel-motivated voices for life. Be sure to stick around after today's live recording of our Chats for Life program to find out how you can be live too on our next Youth for Life podcast. Hello and welcome to our Chats for Life edition. We are gathered together to talk a little bit about dating and dating apps. So dating in contemporary culture and maybe how that has changed and what life issues might be, of course, related to that. So with me, you know me, I'm Michelle, Director of Y4Life, and my assistant is here with us, Cori. Cori, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Cori. I'm the Y4Life assistant, and I'm excited to tackle this topic that I haven't had to deal with, but I think is one that more and more people are having to deal with.
Yeah, so really it's about how do we find a spouse, or how do we even date in 2024, right? Or
Yeah.
in a society where there's not a lot of opportunities to gather together and to meet other young people, right? And how is that being done? Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I guess when I was in college 6 years ago, 6+ years ago, and just thinking about how dating apps are really starting to gain traction as one of the main forms of meeting people outside of the standard face-to-face interactions. I saw a lot of people using it either as a way to quote unquote rebound from a bad breakup or more as a connection point to then potentially meet others and engage in short-term relationships. Whereas I think the apps were kind of introduced as a way to meet your future spouse and form deep relationships. So I just wanted to tackle the topic more as a how do we navigate and how do we encourage those who are seeking a spouse? How do we navigate those things that were intended for one use and have really turned into this ugly monster that um, rears its ugly head in ways that we probably didn't even anticipate.
Yeah. I like the fact that you shared exactly how they were being used, right?
Mhm.
So as a rebound or as a way for a short-term relationship. And I think, there is this sense of shopping. Um, when you're on an app, of course, all of those platforms require that you upload a picture, right? And you give a little brief synopsis of yourself and the things you're interested in. Of course, if we're going to put something out there that's going to be permanent, we're going to put our best self out there, right? The best picture, the day when we looked really great, or maybe even make ourselves sound a little bit more interesting than what we are, right? Like nobody puts on their dating app, I love laundry, right?
Yeah.
I love organizing things. Nobody's gonna put that out there. So, in some ways it sets us up for more of the shopping culture, right? So to base your desire or for a wife or for a husband on certain qualities, one of those being looks, which we all know as we age, those looks change, right? And certainly in marriage, we are committed through sickness and health, and maybe we should put beauty and aging. Although there are some really beautiful people who have aged
Yeah.
very, very well, right? So anyway, but so we've got this kind of like this market or this system of buying and selling already kind of set up, right?
Yeah.
Dating app. And so that it's kind of sets us off on maybe the wrong foot in many areas. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, I was thinking about it, you're also trying to talk to as many people at one time as possible,
Mm.
which can't be good. Like you can have, as many people as you've matched with or however the app algorithm works, you can have, 15, 20 conversations going at once. And I'm just thinking too, along with that shopping, you're not really forming any deep, meaningful connections. You're forming very surface level connections. And just the fact that you're only seeing images of these people, you're not talking to them face to face, and you're having these small talk conversations. You're not getting into the deep topics. And so I think that also plays along with this shopping culture of, that we've seen a lot of consumerism recently. It's just a quick interaction. It's not taking the time to invest.
Yeah, I think that that is a good analogy, that consumerism analogy, right? Like it's a transaction.
Mhm.
And how many of us would get away with that in real life, to try and date or talk to multiple people at once? It also kind of belittles this idea that we're going to choose one person, and we're going to be true to that one person
Mhm.
our entire life, right? Which is what marriage is intended for. And so yeah, even just foundationally, it sets you up for some big time failure. I don't want, if someone's interested in me, when my husband was interested in me, I would have been really sad to find out he had been talking to multiple women. Again, it's very consumeristic, very um, well, certainly invalidates the importance of me in his life, right? Now we
Right.
have multiple friends. We can have multiple friends that are guys and girls, and but the dating app is really set up for finding a spouse, right? Or at
Mhm.
least supposedly finding a spouse, or but at
Mhm.
least a significant person in our life that we want to
Mhm.
pursue that relationship. And so, yeah, that's not even something I had thought about. The fact that you're talking to multiple people. See, I would be so bad at apps. I would be like, oh, this one, I'll just talk to this one, right?
Yeah.
I just don't have that
Well,
mentality.
yeah, and I'm thinking too of like I'm just so bad at responding to one text message, just a quick response today. I don't know how people are managing, like I said, like 15 different conversations and having to keep them all straight of, oh, so this person, like say it's me on a dating app. How do you keep track of this guy is an engineer and he's in this part of the country, and then this other guy is he's a graphic designer and he's on the opposite side, and just trying to keep all those facts straight as you're talking to people. I know I've embarrassed myself face to face talking with people that I don't know very well because I've confused them for someone else. I can't imagine what it's like doing that through an app.
Yeah, and well, and is that healthy, right? Like is that teaching our mind to hold two possibilities at once, in terms of love and long-term relationships? Is that training us to keep eye out for the next person, when
Right.
we should be investing in the possibility of a lifelong commitment with one person? I just Yeah, despite the fact that it would be difficult to keep track of, I think that it's actually, teaching us bad habits,
Mhm.
when we look at relationships. Yeah, so it sounds like both of us agree that dating apps are really not great. Um, and, and they, in many aspects aren't. I have a friend who participated on a dating app, and of course she mentioned she's participated numerous times, in trying to find someone to date, and always has on there that she's Christian. And she has said to me, as you work with youth, warn them about dating apps, because um, if you put Christian on there, some guys see that as easy target, right?
Mhm.
As someone who, oh, good, this girl probably hasn't had multiple partners
Mhm.
sexually, and so maybe a good one to go after, right? And so
Right.
just this like feel of the hunt, right? Being
Mhm.
hunted. And that isn't a good foundation for a future
Yeah.
relationship either, right?
Yeah, and I think just too the fact that it has turned into a very hookup culture rather than a way that, like I said, was intended to be, we're going to find someone to be committed to for long term. Just the fact that even if you do find someone you're committed to long term, there's always that what if of like, oh, did I go on the date with the right person? Should I have gone with the other guy that I matched with and our values were in line? I think that also opens the door for a lot of things, just warning wise of the what ifs. you begin to wonder. Whereas when you set the foundation when you're meeting in person, you can have conversations, and it eliminates a lot of those what ifs early on.
Yeah. And there is something to being seen together, right? So there is a pronouncement to the world, really. When you go somewhere with someone, when you meet face to face, when you spend time together, others observe. There's an accountability there of, okay, we are pursuing a relationship, or at least we're attempting, right? We're getting to know each other. An online relationship, um, there's no real accountability there,
Mhm.
unless somebody's looking over your shoulder and watching you on your phone. Who's to say that you're not having a relationship or conversation with another person on the phone as well at the same time? And you do see that. I mean, you do see, it's one of the reasons that as parents, we don't give our kids unfettered access to the internet without observing what they're doing, right? The old adage, you never let a kid have a computer in his room with the door closed. And
Mhm.
that's really what our phones are. They're computers. And when it comes to relationships, if our relationship is completely online, especially if it is for, weeks or months before we even meet, that's problematic, right?
Mhm.
Unless someone has very good self-control, and we would hope that they would have good self-control. But there's, going to be that temptation, that ding, letting you know, oh, someone else has matched to you.
Mhm.
And that gets in the way of what God intends, for sure.
Right.
So how would we do it then if we don't have apps? What's some suggestions?
Yeah, so if you're in college, I think my favorite is to just go out and meet people, get involved on campus. You never know who you're going to meet. It may be you meet someone your first week of college and you start dating shortly after. It may be your senior year and you meet someone, and then you have to navigate the ins and outs of, well, you may be moving different places. But honestly, I think the college campus is probably the best place to meet a future spouse, because you're having to navigate a lot of things on your own for the first time. So you're learning a lot more about what you do and don't want in a potential spouse. I'd say for high schoolers, taking it slow. Um, I think the big thing we see with a lot of high schoolers now is they don't want to date, period, in high school. Especially in light of COVID and things that happened recently, there's just a lot more of the isolation that we saw. So there's some hesitancy. But I would say take things slow, and probably I would go back and tell my past self, don't date in high school. But if you're going to be wise, go on group dates or group hangouts, things like that. Make sure there's that accountability there, like we talked about. And also, I think it's just fun to ask your parents what their dating stories were, so you can understand more what it was to have to talk in person. I remember my dad asked my mom out under the guise of losing his syllabus through a phone call after they had had a class together. And then their first date, they went and got pizza and then watched a movie with a lot of my mom's friends. So again, just in college, that aspect of group things. So you're not sucked into temptation immediately. And you do have to take the time to get to know each other. So those are things that just come to mind right off the bat for me. I don't know, Michelle, if you have any others that you've seen a lot of youth returning to.
Yeah, I think community is essential, right? And so we meet people through our friends, we meet people through the activities, the things that we like to do. We find commonalities with others. And you're right. I mean, all the good advice and literature on keeping the gifts of marriage for marriage.
Mhm.
They all say, very wisely, group is the way to go. Accountability, right? Making sure that you are not just with that person alone,
Mhm.
especially as you are building that relationship, so that the relationship really is founded on commonalities and founded on friendship, right? So I used
Mhm.
to, when I teach high school students, I would talk to them about friendship is important. It is foundational. So you're looking for someone with a common faith and common interests, or someone that you can admire, someone that they're carrying traits that you desire in a spouse. And there's a
Mhm.
whole, list we could go through. But the only way that you get to know those things is through time.
Right.
And I do think, it's better to have Zoom calls than chats, right?
Mhm.
Or than text. It's better to have some sort of face-to-face interaction, um, if at all possible. And I know that sometimes it's not possible. Like, there are couples who during COVID spent a great deal of time communicating through Zoom or through FaceTime, or, but again, there's that face component, that
Mhm.
component where we're not just hearing the person, but we're seeing them and reading them. So yeah, community is definitely important. Family's important. Church is important. There's good places to meet. I would just throw out there, we've got some really interesting ways people can get connected in the LCMS and in
Mhm.
other Lutheran synods. Conferences for young people are a good way to go as well. I know that some conferences in the LCMS that I know some young people attend purposely to meet other young people. Just shout out for Y4Life. We're starting some conferences for young adults, Y4Life,
Mhm.
which is designed for that 20 to 30 something range. And hopefully that will be a place again where young people can meet each other. They
Mhm.
can get to know and maybe even again connect each other to friends that they have. I think it's okay to say, this is a desire I have, and to be purposeful in pursuing that desire, to be praying about it, that God would introduce you to, again, if you have the desire to get married,
Mhm.
would introduce you to a potential spouse, or even, multiple friends that might lead you to that connection. But it's okay to engage in activities where you're purposely meeting other people your age. I think that's important. So yeah, I mean, college is a great place, but even after college, that doesn't mean it's like the death knell, right? It's not the death knell. Just because you graduate from college and you're not married doesn't mean that you
Yeah.
did, but it does mean that you need to be places where other young people are. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that too places more intentionality on the types of people you're spending time with. When you've graduated college, you have a desire to get married, but you may not have met your spouse. Um, that I think just knowing people that have met their spouse after college and they had gone through a few years of life, they were definitely more intentional in the interactions they had, and even choosing not to go on the apps because they're like, well, I want to form a solid foundation with someone outside of technology. And so I love the idea too of people going to events to meet people, or even going to Bible study at your church. You never know who's going to be at church one Sunday that needs someone to sit with, who may be desiring the same things that you are. If it's someone who is the same sex as you, then you can, support each other through dating adventures and have someone to talk to and relay. If it's someone of the opposite sex and you have the same desires and the same goals in life, then that may be something you pursue. Again, just dating intentionally with marriage as the goal rather than the hookup culture of apps, I think is the other thing that is just a huge curveball in society. So, remembering that too, that after you get out of college, there are more people looking for marriage than you think.
Yeah, I agree. And that intentionality is important, right? That you're right. The hookup culture is a dead end, right? And even cohabitation, which is widely acceptable across the United States in our culture, even by Christians, we see a large percentage of Christians living together. Even that is detrimental to a lifelong marriage. There's some really great statistics out there that talk about that prove you're actually setting yourself up by cohabitating. If you're setting yourself up for a marriage that does not last,
Right.
statistically speaking. So again, another shout out, check it out on y4life.org. There is an infographic with lots of downloadables and lots of good facts out there to support the classic godly marriage. um,
Hmm.
the dating, the getting to know, and courting, we might even call it.
Hmm.
But the getting to know definitely of a future spouse before moving in with them.
Yeah.
And being very intentional about wanting to receive those gifts, the gifts that God intends to give. I do know that there are some Christians who have met their spouse through dating apps, but I think one of the commonalities has been very quickly they got off the app and
Hmm.
they started meeting face to face,
Right.
right? They started calling on the phone and setting up dates to spend time together. And so I won't say that it doesn't work, because it does. There are some, in some instances, there are Christians who have found, and Lutherans in particular, found spouses through dating apps. But again, that commonality seems to be, we're going to find one person, we're going to get rid of the app, and then we're
Hmm.
going to start the work of a relationship to build a relationship. And we
Right.
go back to the app unless that relationship doesn't work out.
Right. Yeah, and in that they also bring in others to help support them in that beginning of the relationship, because it can be awkward to meet someone in person that you've never talked to face before. So, yeah, having that foundation early on that you're going to have people to support you, or at least be there to vet that yes, this is the person you've been talking to online.
Right, right. I mean, just for some basic safety reasons, but
Yeah,
also, yeah, to ease the awkwardness
right.
of meeting others. And it can be awkward, which is why if there are commonalities, if you're meeting at an event,
Hmm.
there are oftentimes things that can reduce the awkwardness. All right.
Right.
There's something to talk about, whether it's
Right.
an event or something else. Well, fantastic. This is a great topic. Certainly does relate to numerous life issues, and potential life issues. And certainly we want to be very purposeful in what we pursue as a Christian, in dating in particular, because of course we're looking for that lifelong spouse, and that's a big decision and a great opportunity to receive the gifts that God intends to give, again, if we've made some good choices in pursuing those gifts. So,
Yeah.
well, thanks for joining me today. And for those of you listening, we would love it if you could like this, pass it on to others, check out other episodes. And thanks so much for following Y4Life. Thanks for joining us for today's life topic. Check out Y4Life.org or email Michelle at Y4Life.org to find out how and when you can go live with us at our next Chats for Life session. Or join us next time, right here at Y4Life Podcasts, where youth learn how to be gospel-motivated voices for life.